This is the Driver and Vehicle Systems Oversight Committee. It is Friday, March 5th, 2021, and we are conducting this meeting by Zoom. We have a number of testifiers that we are going to be starting with. I will say that we've got a substitute on your agenda. It's Amber Backus with the Automobile Dealers Association, and Mr. Lambert will be joining us in lieu of Ms. Backus. And I understand that we will have some folks on from FAST who will be able to answer any questions that we may have, but they are not listed on the sheet as testifiers. So I think, members, I think with that, we are going to get started. And our first testifier is Commissioner Harrington. Good morning, Commissioner. Welcome. Tell us all the good news. Commissioner, you are muted for some reason. You're still muted.
We can hear you now, Commissioner.
Okay. Maybe I had a bad connection on the headphone set. I'm trying out something new, trying to keep the noise levels in the background. They keep being sirens down the street from where I'm at, unfortunately. So good morning, Chairman Newman and Chair Hornstein and members of the committee. For the record, my name is John Harrington. I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Public Safety, and I am actually here to give you some good news, which given my history with this particular topic, may seem surprising to some, but for those who've been paying attention to what the Department of Public Safety and DVS has been doing in conjunction with the legislature and with our many partners, I think it should not come as a surprise that I'm not coming today to bemoan what's going on, but rather to highlight some real successes here. I'm happy to report that the Minnesota Drive successfully launched on November 16th of 2020. That launch occurred both on time and within budget. And that we did all of that, even with the challenges of COVID, I think is a pretty remarkable feat. If you think about all the folks that, instead of being in the same office, working together, sharing ideas, problem solving, had to do that from remote sites and telework. It is amazing to me that we were able to accomplish what is a huge feat technologically and organizationally on time and within budget. Part of the success of that, I have to give to a number of people. Number one, I'm going to thank my boss, Governor Walz, who in our very first meeting, even before I was commissioner, highlighted that fixing MNDRIVE was a top priority for his administration. I remember him telling me that if we cannot get this right, it would be impossible to make the case that anything else in government, if you can't get people their tabs and can't get them their driver's licenses on time and with efficiency, why should you believe that the government can fix any of the bigger and more difficult problems? I want to thank you, and both chairs and the members of the committee, because you believed in us. You asked the hard questions when those questions needed to be asked. You negotiated forcefully on a number of occasions to make sure that we were on the right track and that you had all the I's dotted and the T's crossed to make sure that the department was moving in the right direction and that this project was going to perform to your specifications and to the specifications of your constituents. I see Rick King here, and I want to thank him and the Blue Ribbon Committee because Blue Ribbon Council, because I know that their input, their advice, their counsel was absolutely instrumental in picking the right team, picking the right people, and picking the right vendor, and moving in this direction from staying internal to going to an external vendor. And that has absolutely made an enormous amount of difference in our success here. I need to thank the deputy registers and the Minnesota Dealers Association, who have not only added their voices in calling for the change, but when we got into the midst of actually designing the system. They rolled up their sleeves. They sent their members to be part of our team. They worked with us side by side or Zoom by Zoom to make sure that the voices of the deputy registers, the voices of the dealers associations, the end users of this product were absolutely heard regularly. Finally, I want to thank my DVS staff who put in an incredible amount of effort and work into this. They were complemented by Pancho Henderson and Tarek Tome's staff from Minute. And finally, last but not least, Ken Buna and the FAST team, which really did provide us with an amazing product. And it is still paying dividends even as we speak. Since the launch, the system has conducted 2,401,352 vehicle services transactions since November 14th, roughly, until yesterday. That's a lot of transactions. That's a lot of people's title and registration work going through the system. As part of that, $573 million was collected for those service transactions. So I think your investment, because that's what this was an investment that the state made, is both proving out to say we are producing the results that you wanted, and we're also bringing in the revenue to support that. The improvements with the new system, the vehicles are being now registered on demand rather than having the lag time. They're registered with the new MNDRIVE instantly, which I think is an important piece. And in this day and age, when we can literally talk to each other all over the state and all over the country by Zoom, young people in our state have come to expect this kind of instantaneous digital work to be done. And I expect that they are going to continue to expect that not only do we do it instantaneously, they want it faster, they want it smoother, and they're going to want more options available. They're going to want apps as they do with everything else they want these days. One of the things that I'm very proud to see, I see every day now, I see these new temporary plates out that are so much easier to see. I can spot them as they're driving down the road. I'm not looking for a faded little yellow scrap of paper in somebody's back window. And I'm absolutely certain that law enforcement is much happier with being able to see these temporary plates the way they are now than they were before. We are using scanning. I think that was one of the things that you and others on the committee asked us about, and we are now scanning documents in the system, and that is helping us both be faster. It is also helping us make sure we have more accurate and complete records. I will tell you that the MNDRIVE system is a great base for the future improvements that members of your committee asked us for before. Because we have this system, and because that system is being used all over the country, we're going to be able to link to self-service options like kiosks and other self-service options that are out there that other people are trying out. And I will, frankly, we're not at the front end of that particular curve. I prefer, much like adopting FAST, that we are having somebody else be the test case for that to see how that works. But I can tell you that we're very interested in those options, and we are going to move very quickly to adopt them once we see proof of concept and see that they actually work the way we want them to. I can tell you that in addition to that, MNDRIVE data is now being migrated to the FAST servers, which will improve both our speed of delivery, and it'll also improve our safety. It will mean that we have a redundancy system built in that I think really makes our system much more secure. As with all new systems, there are challenges, and training has certainly been one of the challenges we've had there. But I think, once again, FAST and the DVS folks put together a very robust training process. And I want to thank the drivers, the deputy registers and the Minnesota dealers for really pushing their people to get into the training and get that done. Finally, MNLARS has been now officially powered down since February 19th of 2021. I sort of thought we'd have a party when that happened. Because of COVID, we could not join together and physically smash the servers, but I can promise you that there were over 200 servers that supported MNLARS, and we are now down to under 40, and those are en route to a shredder. So that part of our history will shortly be just that. It'll simply be a moment in history that we can reflect upon how we've moved from there. You're going to hear from Director Emma Corey, who is going to do the presentation from DVS, that this has been a team effort. And I want you to know that as we're moving now into phase 2 of that team effort, that we appreciate your support, your counsel and guidance, and the support that all of those partners I listed before have lent to this project. And with that, I will stand for questions, or we can turn it over to Emma Corey for the presentation.
Mr. Commissioner, I will tell you candidly that I'm very disappointed I was unable to attend that smash the server party that you referred to. Maybe we could still have some type of a party to celebrate this in the future. Commissioner, it would be my intention to move through all of the testifiers before we go to questions, and I'm going to do that in an effort to try and be done by 11:30. Will you be able to hang around with us that long?
Yes, sir. I am at your call.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. With that, members, we're going to go to Emma Corey. Ms. Corey, welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Chair Newman. My name is Emma Corey, and I am the Driver and Vehicle Services Director. And also Brandon Walters, the MNDRIVE Minnesota Drive Program Director, will be joining me for this presentation. But I will get us started. And as my opening remarks, I want to say that it is an honor and a pleasure for both Brandon and myself to provide this report and update on the successful launch of the new Minnesota Drive system. This transitions 2 systems, the MNLARS system on the vehicle side and the FAST-DS system on the driver side, to be now one unified system of record for both driver and vehicle services and transactions for the state of Minnesota. This could not have been possible, as Commissioner said, without the support of Governor Walz, the foresight and the recommendation of the Blue Ribbon Council and on IT and the Chair Rick King, when they talked about the importance of the off-the-shelf software and no customization. A year and a half later, we see the wisdom in those thoughts and those stipulations and that guidance and those guidelines. Also to the leadership structure and the governance that was provided by this Oversight Committee throughout this time, Chairs Newman, Chairs Hornstein. And of course, the incredible partnership between our partners on this implementation team. And that is the Minutes team under Pancho Henderson could not have a better partner, Fast and Ken and his team of Fasties, and our business partners, unbelievable collaboration. A lot more about that in my presentation in the coming slides. We are set up now for a foundation that can build on the evolving technology moving forward. This presentation is focused on a couple items on this agenda. Firstly, the VTRS project update, the MNDRIVE rollout, and the very intentional steps that went into that rollout in the way of support for our business partners. A FAST-DS update, MNLARS decommissioning update, what is yet to come with MNDRIVE phase 2, and Brandon will cover that, and then of course we will go into questions. Starting with the VTRS project update. We are talking about 2 phases. One phase has just been completed. Phase 1 is about 80, just to give you perspective, phase 1 is about 80% of the project. So we have 80% of the project now behind us. We are deeming it a success. The replacement of the MNLARS title and registration, dealer management now in the MNDRIVE system, fleet management, document imaging, and permits. This was effective on November 16th, 2020. Phase 2 is yet to come. We have just begun the first part of that phase. It will replace the prorate function the International Fuel Tax Agreement and International Registration Plan functions of the system, with then completely having all functions for driver and vehicle in the one Minnesota Drive system of record. That will be deployed with the final completion of the project on October 4th, 2021. Next slide. Rollout events. I spend a little bit of time on these because it is so important to acknowledge every one of these groups. November 9th and November 12th, 2 days, including all the way up to Governor Walz, was on these go, no-go calls. These were called readiness calls when Governor Walz and every one of these partners, the Minnesota Deputy Registrars Association President, Deputy Registrars Business Owners Association President, Minnesota Automobile Dealers Association President, Fast Enterprises Project Director, DVS Leadership, DPS Leadership, and Minute Leadership. Again, on both these calls, there was an approval of the rollout for MNDRIVE provided by Governor Walz, Commissioner Harrington, and Commissioner Tomes. Moving to the next slide. November 10th, the week of November 10th, we asked our deputy registrars to focus on that rollout. We were closed for business. The last day we did any MNLARS transactions was November 10th, 2020. November 11th and 12th, we completed and confirmed that all data from MNLARS had been extracted and moved and exported into Minnesota Drive. 13th and 14th, over a weekend, our deputy registrars, our dealers, our partners, especially the ones listed on this screen, Blue Earth County, Hennepin County, Invergrove Heights, Rochester, South St. Paul, Stearns County, Alexandria, Burnsville, Eagan, Hutchinson, Lakeville, Moorhead, New Brighton, Princeton, Rochester, Shakopee, Stearns County, and Worthington. Every one of these deputy registrars were involved in the soft launch and the testing on the weekend before the day we went live. November 16th, we went live with the Minnesota Drive system with all deputy registrars and dealers. On that first day of operations, we completed 21,000 transactions and 3.2 million in fees and taxes were collected on the first day of operations of Minnesota Drive. Next slide. I want to again emphasize this success was due to the engagement of our deputy registrars and our auto dealers. We are not talking about periodic meetings. Gay Smith, Colton Seifler, Jared O'Reilly, Joe Hyder, and Ali Quinn, these were partners that were part of our staff in the past year. They were part of the project team that designed and implemented Minnesota Drive for you, for me as Minnesotans. Communication, collaboration, and accountability have been the bedrock of this implementation rollout success and our continued commitment to enhancements of the system moving forward. Again, there was a strong partnership between Minute and us, where we were able to deliver for Minnesotans through this partnership. Next slide. Again, talking about MNLARS and transitioning from MNLARS, that was a transition. We needed to complete work in progress that was left from the MNLARS era. We hired temporary staff. We did what needed to be done in the way of title processing, document scanning, record searches, customer refunds to wrap up and close out MNLARS. That was a feat, but the team did it and was able to accomplish that. Next slide. Again, production support during the rollout and post-rollout. FAST and Minute and DVS staff made it possible for our deputy registrars to have a self-service support tool in MNDRIVE so that they could look up their questions. There was a live web chat, WebEx chat support, standard phone support, email support, and virtual desk side support all through the week leading to and weeks after the rollout. Next slide. Production support was provided by FACTS and the DVS staff in terms of also publishing. That first day when we saw some latency issues occur, those first 8 days of MNDRIVE, when we realized that there was a slight slowness in the process, we immediately responded with Minute adding server resources, also DVS providing deputy registrars with directions regarding file images so that the system was not bogged down because of the size of scanned images. FACTS in the background did their part with site configuration so that we overcame those issues immediately within days. And we were documenting any issues as they came up, and we were also documenting resolutions and workarounds that were being implemented as we went ahead. Next slide, please. Again, want to focus on giving you a chance to see the payment schedule for FACTS. We have now completed payments for up to $26.6 million to FACTS. That is the total payments made to date to FACTS for the implementation of the Minnesota Drive system. As we said, as Commissioner mentioned, we launched on time and under budget. Next slide, please. Finally, I want to also talk about the FACTS DS. In the heart of the vehicle side, and that being the focus, I don't want to forget that we did not forget the driver side. The driver side had a major version upgrade from version 11 to version 12. In the heart of the pandemic, FACTS and Minute again served us well in providing options that were not part of the plan, like a virtual lobby that allows people to wait in their car versus in line in the heart of COVID for their driver license transactions, the scheduling of appointments, the extension of driver credentials, and the online renewal of Class D licenses. With your help, we even were able to add the option for an online Class D knowledge exam during the heart of the pandemic. And finally, the MNLARS decommissioning. As has been mentioned earlier, there were about 216 MNLARS servers that were to be decommissioned. All needed MNLARS data has successfully migrated to Minnesota Drive. As planned, MNLARS has been temporarily maintained in the read-only state. By the end of March, MNLARS will be completely decommissioned. End of March 2021. And I want to end with this slide, which is kind of a snapshot that tells you the benefits and efficiencies achieved with Minnesota Drive. For customers, improved accuracy of data and transactions, reduced time, and increased online and on-demand options. I want to draw your attention, even since rollout, which was less than 4 months ago, we have reduced the time it takes to complete a new title. New registration transaction is now at 8 minutes, a reduction even since launch from 9.6 minutes to 8 minutes. And then also for a renewal, under 1.5 minutes for a renewal transaction. We're talking about a platform that is ready to serve as a foundation for more self-service online options. For the deputy registrars, they have been involved and have the opportunity to provide input into the design, implementation, and the ongoing improvements and technical enhancements of the system. Scanning efficiencies, reduced mailing costs, streamlined processes, training that is focused on their input and their needs. We are hearing about their feedback on the visuals of the screens when we use MNDRIVE. Ken and his team are working actively to reduce transaction time as well as the view that both our picked agents as well as our DR staff receive, so that that learning curve with the new system can be reduced and they can get familiar and that they can be able to process transactions faster. Financial and refund functionality has been improved. And then finally, for DPS, as I have mentioned, the big benefit is one system of record for all driver and vehicle transactions, one system of record. This is a data-rich system. We are talking about good data. In order to get good data, you must input good data. Our staff right now, they do have those stops where they need to put in an email address. The intent of those intentional steps is for progress and better data in the future. So when we have those stops, it is to make sure we are getting good data and inputting it. And finally, we have a platform for future evolving technology in the realm of driver and vehicle services. With that, I want to transition it over to our MNDRIVE, Minnesota Drive Program Director, Brandon Walters, and he will talk a little bit about phase 2 and what we can expect there.
Thank
Go
you,
ahead,
Director.
Brandon.
Yeah, thank you, Director Corey. Mr. Walters, if you want to identify yourself for the record, and please proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members, for having me today. Like Emma, Director Corey mentioned, my name is Brandon Walters. I'm the MNDRIVE Program Director. Just a few words. I know most of you don't know who I am, so I just wanted to say a few words about who I am. I started working in DVS in 2012 on the vehicle services side. I spent my entire career on the vehicle services side, so I have experience in all of the legacy systems, have intimate knowledge of all the issues and some of the good things with some of the previous systems as well. But I have worked firsthand in this new system, Minnesota Drive. I see the enormous potential that it has to offer the citizens and the DVS staff and all of our business partners as well. So like everybody in this meeting today, I care deeply about the success of this project, and I'm going to work very hard alongside all of my colleagues to make sure that we have successful engagement with all the stakeholders and a successful rollout of this phase 2 that I'm going to be describing here in a moment. My number one objective is to make sure that we have a system that works for everybody and ultimately for the citizens of Minnesota. So again, thank you so much for having me here today. So like the Director Corey mentioned, I'll be sharing some information with you about the phase 2 overview and the progress that we have seen so far. So next slide, please. So phase 2 will include functionality for motor carriers in the International Fuel Tax Agreement, which is known as IFTA, and the International Registration Plan, which is known as IRP. It's commonly referred to as IFTA IRP. Sometimes it's referred to as prorate. These are cooperative programs that are designed to collect and distribute revenue evenly or distribute revenue between member states for certain motor vehicles that are engaged in interstate commerce. Like Director Corey mentioned, phase 1 is characterized as being 80% of the project, and this phase 2 is 20% of the project, the remaining phase. And so what we are going to do and what we have been doing is taking what we learned from phase 1 and using what we learned from phase 1 and what worked well for us and applying that to phase 2. We have a lot of really excellent staff on the MNDRIVE project, DVS staff, as well as the Fast Enterprise staff who have a lot of good experience. They have a good experience under their belt from phase 1. Our basic approach with phase 2 is similar to phase 1, where we're going to be leveraging the core functions of the FAST solution for IFTA IRP and then making adjustments as needed to meet specific Minnesota needs. Thankfully, the IFTA IRP world there's a lot of federalization with it, so there's a lot of standards involved, and Fast Enterprises has experience and has rolled out this part of the project in several other states. So there'll be a lot less tweaking to meet Minnesota specific needs. Next slide, please. So January 13th, the project team officially kicked off phase 2 with a presentation to staff. and a discussion about the basic stages and the plans for the months to come. We're currently deep in the definition and configuration stages, which will help to build a baseline for future stages and for a starting point for rollout in October. Some of the requirement meetings, so we are engaged in daily requirement meetings right now with DVS prorate subject matter experts and including one deputy registrar SME as well. The purpose of these meetings is to gather information on how staff currently do their work, what some of the basic requirements are in order for them to do their work, and then that information is used to assist in the configuring of the IFTA IRP core product that meets Minnesota needs. Just a side note, as a newcomer to these meetings, I've been just very impressed with all of the knowledge that our DVS prorate staff have, and then the deputy registrar SME as well that participates in these meetings. They're asking really excellent questions. I have some experience in the prorate side, and I thought I had a good baseline knowledge, but there's a lot to learn. So they are just really excellent, and the FAST team as well has a lot of good experience, and they know what they're doing as well. They're asking really good questions. So this is really a critical stage. And we need everybody's participation in order to set a solid baseline for future stages. So next slide, please. So as with phase one, engagement with external stakeholders remains really essential to the project's phase two success. There are currently 9 deputy registrar offices around the state that offer prorate services. And though the scope of phase two will be less than with phase one, their participation is crucial to make sure that the final product works for them and ultimately for the citizens of Minnesota. And we're happy to have one SME who will be participating in this phase from the Crossroads License Bureau in Rochester, Minnesota. This SME will help us to ensure that the system works for deputy registrars who perform the work, and then for those who work the face-to-face customer level perspective. The SME is slated to join us next week. The Minnesota Drive training team has also begun job shadowing with the deputy registrar office in Rochester. They're doing listening sessions. The purpose of that is to gain some insight into their current business process, what works for them currently, what some of their pain points are, and then some areas that could be improved on that could be incorporated into the new system. Another important member, another important stakeholder is the Minnesota Trucking Association, MTA. They're really important stakeholders, and they will be the ones who are using the Minnesota Drive e-services. And so the MTA assisted DVS in identifying 2 staff members from the MTA trucking companies who will also act as SMEs. Their feedback, input, and assistance with the testing will be a really key component to make sure that the e-services works for them and meets their needs. Their contracts are still in the works, but the hope is that they'll join the project in April. We are also planning to start a regular communication line with our motor carriers beginning sometime in April with the purpose of delivering information, updates, and to start preparing them for rollout and offering a line of communication if they have any questions or concerns. Next slide, please. Finally, just some closing words. Phase two of the project is on schedule for rollout on October 4th, 2021. Like I said, the IFTA IRP side of the project is part of Fast Enterprise's core solution, and it has been rolled out in other states. And we have a lot of good experience under our belt, and which will help us to make sure we stay on schedule for October 4th. There's a lot of work ahead of us. But with the assistance of FAST, DVS Minnesota Drive project team, DVS SMEs, the stakeholder SMEs such as the deputy registrars, MTA members, this collaboration is already showing a really strong start to the early stages of this rollout. And engagement, again, and active participation by everybody involved in this project is going to be a really essential component for a successful rollout and for a system that works for everybody and the citizens of Minnesota. So thank you very, very much for your attention this morning, and I will be happy to turn this over to the committee chairs, and we will stand for questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Walters. At this point, we are going to hear from some stakeholders. And the first would be the Minnesota Automobile Association, and that would be Mr. Lambert.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for giving us the opportunity to testify today. And thank you for letting me pinch hit here for Amber Backus, who could not be with us. As you know, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, no one was more outspoken and critical of the MNDRIVE effort and the MNDRIVE product and the effort that brought it to us than my organization and myself. So with that understanding, I'm pleased to say that we are very, very happy with the rollout of MNDRIVE. We feel it's gone very smooth. Any glitches were dealt with pretty quickly by the FAST team and the team at DVS. As TVS Director Corey said, we embedded an employee into the process and was there throughout the construction of the system, and we thought we had a lot of input and that our input was well taken. The system was designed, as we all know, to push work out to the point of sale, which is to my dealers and their customers. Most of the inputting has to happen right there, and that was by design. And we knew that going into it, and the dealers were still a little put out once it got released that there was so much being asked of them. But we also created a system to help with that, and that was an electronic vehicle title and registration system known as EVTR, and it complements the MNDRIVE system itself. Basically, it imports data from the dealer's DMS systems, dealer management systems, to help populate all the forms that need to get done to help the registration process. And then we asked for multiple EVTR vendors to help with this. And our hope was that if we have a bunch of vendors, maybe one or two could produce a program that would work with MNDRIVE and work for our dealers. And I'm happy to report that we didn't get one or two, we have 6. There are currently 6 vendors working in Minnesota with very viable programs that work with the dealer systems. They integrate with the dealer management systems, and they work with MNDRIVE. So the title and registration functions can happen quickly and efficiently. Everything, the calculations on the fees, everything is done right there at the dealership, and it's done accurately. We currently have 125 new and used car dealers who have signed up and are being onboarded. They're signing up fast. We're getting about a dozen a week, onboarding them, frankly, as fast as we can. And I'm pleased to report in February, we conducted just over 6,500 completed transactions through this process. And everybody has been very, very good to work with on that. So that number will explode in the next few months as we pile on more dealers onto the system. And frankly, it's been slow sales right now. January and February are always slow, but the spring selling season is upon us. So we expect to significantly increase the number of transactions done through EVTR. So the system is working very well, and we are pleased with what's in front of us. But perhaps just as importantly, I want to compliment the team that Commissioner Harrington has brought to his Department of Public Safety, and not just the team, but the entire culture change that has happened. Nothing that occurred in the run-up to MNDRIVE is occurring anymore. It is a very open and engaged group of people. The communication is terrific. Our input is sought and received. Our calls get answered. As a matter of fact, Director Corey and I were on a phone call last night at about 6 o'clock, trying to sort through a minor issue regarding license plate inventory. And it's something that we can deal with easily, and she's working with us on it. But that kind of responsiveness is not unusual. I'd emailed her earlier in the day, and she caught me at the end of the day, and that's how they are responding to us. So we're very, very happy with the system and with the method that has brought it about. And again, my compliments to the to the commissioner for everything he's done to make that happen. I'll just close by saying I think a lot of you lawmakers certainly know we're in a pretty big disagreement right now with the Walz administration and a whole other agency on a policy issue. So with that understanding, I do need to say that the governor and this administration should really get more credit for what has been accomplished here. Minnesota is going to have a title and registration system that is going to serve Minnesota for a very, very long time. And you policymakers on this call and elsewhere in the legislature who validated a lot of really hard decisions to get out of the MNLARS mess and get into this good place. We're in a good place right now. You deserve credit for this as well. We were all very quick to pile on when things were bad, and we're very critical and very vocal. And we should be just as vocal now that things are going well. We should be piling on with praise. And I do want to. I do think the administration gets all the credit in the world for doing the right thing, fixing this the way it needed to be fixed, making hard decisions. And I want to thank all of you legislators as well who helped us with that get to this point. So those are my comments. And again, thank you very much for letting me talk. And I will stick around in case there's any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Lambert. Chair Hornstein, did you want to weigh in before we were completed with our testifiers?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I had a question for DVS, but we can wait till everyone else is completed.
Thank you, Chair Hornstein. We have 4 deputy registrars that are on deck to testify. The first is Mike Hintz. Mr. Hintz, if you would identify yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony, please.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Newman, Chair Hornstein. My name is Mike Hintz. I am married to Molly, who is a deputy registrar for 3 offices in the Rochester area. A little background, I was on the registration task force with Senator Cascaden's leadership there, making some changes in our registration program to help streamline the MNDRIVE release. I was also a tester at home when we went into the COVID craziness in March. I was a power user throughout the development of MNDRIVE, as well as the office trainer, and I am an everyday counter user in all of my offices, so I still touch and feel MNDRIVE every day. I would like to agree with what Mr. Lambert said. Thank you to the legislature for your leadership and oversight in developing this program. There were definitely some hard decisions to be made. MNLARS was a very painful experience for a lot of people, and it was tough for you to make those calls to replace it the way we did, but I think overall it went really well. I would like to say that I am super pleased with the implementation of this thing and working with FAST. I think they did an excellent job with providing us with training. It was quite lengthy, both in learning their program and the job specific part, but they did kind of have to start from scratch, but they were very, very responsive to our concerns, questions. If we didn't have a piece that we knew an answer for, they were very quick to develop an answer and a resolution for that. So my hat's off to Ken Buna and the whole team at FAST. I thought they were great to work with. The biggest happiness for us was that it worked. Day one, when we started on that Monday, turned it on, and it did what it was supposed to do, which was, believe me, there were many sweaty palms and beaded brows about whether or not it was going to work like they said it did when they turned it on for real. And it did. And that was a very good feeling for that day. Very, very few transactions that could not be done right out of the gate. And they did the soft launch. I think it was mentioned earlier in Director Corey's presentation, the soft launches in the offices was an excellent plan. And it weeded out a few bugs that right away that we were able to fix before launch. So that was a very, very, very good experience. A couple of things that we have a concern with in implementation and even now. Training, we had all that training going into MNDRIVE. Now we're, 3.5 months, 4 months into it. we've had a lot of turnover in offices, and we're discovering the training is a bit of a challenge for new staff. That's something, and I know they're working on it. Speaking with Todd Osby and some things, they are developing some more training tools and things like that to help us with that. So that is an ongoing process. I didn't hear anything from Mr. Lambert there, but we are hearing from some of our dealers that their training side seemed rather abrupt, and they don't seem to have the support network that we have as deputy registrars. We're getting a lot of calls from our dealers about how to do things on their side of in the e-services side of things. And we don't have the answers because we're not e-services users. So there is some sort of a disconnect in the training and support for the dealer side versus what we did. Hold on, I got a snooze or my computer's going to restart. There we go. We're having a lot of hold times with liaisons and our support team. I know that Director Corey is working on that. They're doing some staffing changes, but I don't know what it is, but lately it's a 45-minute phone call to get support on the phone pretty regularly. Another thing that we had deputy registrars had a concern with prior to launch was the financial aspects of this program, and how do we as deputy registrars account for our money? We're private offices, so for me, X number of transactions times this filing fee equals the amount of money I have to work with every day. In MNDRIVE, it's not that simple. And if you think of it as cash basis accounting, that's what we've done for 60 years, and now we all of a sudden have to become accountants. So that's really been a challenge. They are working on that a little bit. I know they've made some changes, but that is an everyday concern with us as privates. And I can't speak for the publics, but I would assume if you've got a city or county auditor sitting over your shoulder wondering why your transaction count doesn't match your revenue for the day, I would think that would be a problem. E-services is a tool on the public side of MNDRIVE, and I've had some complaints from customers that the estimates for my new truck I'm buying in Wisconsin don't match what it actually, they come in and they're off $30 to $50 to $100 on an estimation for fees. They're not happy about that. And for whatever reason, the calling up last year's tax paid is not working. But that's just my list of things here. I don't want to take a whole bunch of time, and I'm sure other people will have different things. I'd like to thank you for your time to testify this morning, and I will be available for questions if needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hintz. The next testifier is Mr. Orth. Mr. Orth, if you would identify yourself for the record and proceed, please.
Yes, Jeff Orth. I'm the current president of the Minnesota Deputy Registrars Association, and I want to thank everyone for the opportunity to speak today. I have to echo comments from our leadership, Director Corey, Commissioner Harrington, and Mike, Scott from the MADA. I think the launch went very well, and everyone is to be commended for that. Were there some glitches? A few, but the difference is there is a culture difference, and I want to thank Commissioner Harrington for that, and Governor Walz, in that when we have issues, we have a receptive voice, and we do have a work group that identifies issues as they come up, and Mike outlined a few of those in his presentation. Thank you, Mike. And we prioritize those and work with the department on which changes should occur next and what's the most important. And these are changes to the system. But the point of it is that we're working together as a team to make the improvements, and it's very collaborative. And I can't emphasize that enough. So I think everyone that I work with, they so appreciate the ability to collaborate and make the system better for us all, and which ultimately is better for the citizens. And that's what I embrace. And again, I started as a deputy registrar in 1981, so I'm kind of getting to the end of my career. Seen a lot of changes over the years, but this is very refreshing. And thank the opportunity, everyone here for the opportunity to speak to this today. And with that, I'll conclude my remarks. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Orth. Next up, we have Mr. Vossen. If you would, I don't see you yet, but I have a hunch you're there. You're coming. Mr. Vossen, if you would identify yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony, please. And Mr. Vossen, I am not getting any audio. Yeah, Mr. Vossen, we are not hearing you at all. Okay, I think at this point, Mr. Vossen, what I'm going to do is go to the final deputy registrar, and then I'll come back to you because we are not hearing or seeing you. So I will come back to you. The other deputy registrar that we have is Christy Bouquet. If you would please identify yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony. And you are muted.
I always forget about that.
There we go. Go
Hi.
ahead.
I'm Christy Bocage, and I am the deputy here in South St. Paul. I'm also the DRBOA president. And I just wanted to thank you, Chair Newman and Chair Hornstein, again, for your oversight and everyone here on the Oversight Committee. Deputies have been affected in so many ways since 2017 and have continued to partner with DVS, legislators, MATA, even our customers to help figure out a fix for MNLARS. Our staff was certainly challenged by the training and rollout of MNLARS, the training and rollout of FAST-DS, which is the driver's license only, the implementation of Real ID, COVID changes and issues that, of course, that ensued, and the training and rollout of MNDRIVE. And all of this happened in the last 3 years. So you may hear about that from different deputies with, I think they already alluded to some of that when it comes to some of the rollover that we have here. Our small businesses have certainly been affected by this, staff quitting due to these rollouts, sometimes even the abuse of the customers who are frustrated with some of these changes, as well as the challenges of something like Real ID. Financial impacts which affect us, not being able to even afford to get new staff to help meet some of those challenges with that turnover. New equipment needs that we have here, computers, system upgrades that we are required, scanners, barcode readers are just a few of them, including now this last year, of course, everything that we've had to purchase in order to be open when it comes to some of the COVID rules and things like that. So you can imagine the impacts that that has had for our small businesses as well. But how we've helped, and we appreciate the involvement that you've heard from many people, Jeff Orth included, as well as Mike. Donnie would probably allude to this as well as Director Corey talked about, is that we had, such great involvement with this, and that is very important and continues to be important as we provided staff full-time, and we continue to provide testers. You even have, I think, some testers happening this weekend on some different things that are happening, and that is very important because we help make that part of that a success. Deputies right now are working on what's called SQR review teams for finding issues and solutions, and I believe that's every 2 weeks. We have executive steering committees, we have driver's license and motor vehicle work groups, along with countless Zoom or Microsoft team meetings as we all participate in now. And again, all of those in order to help make improvements with some of the things and the issues that maybe Mike Hintz had started to allude to. MNDRIVE is certainly and most definitely better than MNLARS. And the DVS leadership, Commissioner Harrington, and his team, Ken Buna and his team, closely working with us deputies, truly listen to us. And I believe that part of that success, also about the change in the culture, as Jeff Orth had talked about, is that we are partnering in a different way. And I think that continues to be important. And I know there's some staffing changes going on at DVS, and I hope that we continue to see that wave of participation together to make us continue to work as we have some challenges still with MNDRIVE. As you can hear, I just kind of touched on an overview, and Donnie had a couple more details that I think he was going to talk about when it came to some of the challenges that I have, but I know that you heard some of them also from Mike Hintz. So we have some room to grow, and I do so appreciate, though, everybody here and the work that everybody's done over the last many years. But I just wanted to make sure that we also thank you, but also point out that we have some room to keep working.
Thank you very much for your testimony. I'm going to go back to Mr. Vossen. We're going to try that again. Are you available, Mr. Vossen? So far, I am hearing nothing, Mr. Vossen. Mr. Vossen, I'm not sure what has happened here, but we can't see or hear you. So we are, at this point, I'm sorry, but we are going to proceed. We do have, Mr. King is not on the agenda to speak, but as the chair of the Blue Ribbon Committee, he's been intimately involved in this endeavor from the very beginning. And I just wonder, Mr. King, if you would identify yourself for the record, if you've got some comments that you'd like to share.
Thank you, Chair Newman. Rick King, Chairman of the Governor's Blue Ribbon Council on IT. I think you heard a great deal of testimony about the success that's going on with MNDRIVE, which I would amplify from what I've heard. And also, I would note that, and thank you for this, that the dealers or the deputy registrars put together a joint call that I had with them maybe about 6 weeks ago. So I heard from a variety of them in terms of some of their concerns and praise, by the way. So I think it was a very good call and I appreciated it. I'll probably make a couple of remarks here to include those so that the committee here has benefit of that, because that group did include Mr. Vossen as well. I'll just say all the people that worked on this together have done a fantastic job, and that's been articulated already, so I won't go through that in detail. The upcoming October 21 release is at an interesting time because that's the same time that the Real ID deadline has been currently extended to. There is some talk in the federal government about whether that gets pushed out further, but I think we're going to confront something that we needed to, and we're addressing pretty well, and that is communication with our citizens who fly or enter federal property to transition to a Real ID. So we'll push that further as we have in the past. I will note that since we last talked to this Oversight Committee, we were able to open a Real ID station with the collaboration with DPS and DVS at the airport, where people can make reservations while they're waiting 2 hours ahead of their flight time to bring in their paperwork and get their Real ID done. So I think that's been getting some good traffic there. And when people aren't working active counter activities, they do the back office work that DVS has to do. So it's really quite efficient. So to net out, the software is running really well. I think that doesn't mean there aren't some things to attend to. I've been pleased the way people have attended to any of the issues, both in terms of the user at the end articulating what the issue is, and then fast jumping on it with DVS to get it fixed. It is no small feat that you heard this morning that the MNLARS decommissioning is going to happen and complete this month. So should all take strong note of that. That's something great, with the data being archived in case that's needed, but the actual hardware going away. I would mention a couple of items to kind of keep your eye on, and these come up quite often in our weekly leadership meetings that I've been attending, I don't know, for a year at least, with DVS, DPS, Minute, and FAST. And they're really, really good meetings because no one is pulling any punches. Everything's out on the table to resolve whatever issues might be at hand. There's a lot of innovation discussions going on. It's really kind of impressive in how people are thinking about taking down delays or queues. We heard one of those today about maybe some hold times. And that's the kind of thing that this group really brainstorms on and tries to figure out. There's been a lot of discussion in that group and other places about opportunities for multiple channels. That is a self-service channel to go along with some of the in-person channels. Those are particularly valuable in this time with COVID, of course, but they'll be functional after that. I would reflect that in these meetings, there's a really strong drive from particularly Assistant Commissioner Lino for innovation in this whole process, along with Commissioner Tomes. It's quite remarkable and something that I did not see or feel as we explored what was going on with MNDRIVE during that independent expert review. Quite a change, not only the change in culture that was already reflected, but a change in approach to thinking and the way we ought to be doing things as a state. Very impressive to me. I'll highlight one of those things I don't want to let go, and it's a little bit techie, but stick with me if you will. When you heard the discussion about the EVTR project, I just want to make a contrast. In days of old, the state would have said we need to seek a single EVTR vendor, and we need to work with that vendor to hard code their system into our vehicle system. That was the old way of thinking. The current way of thinking and the way it was done with MNDRIVE was to take MNDRIVE and make an API or an open interface to that, and then allow multiple, as many as they want, vendors who provide ETVR services to write their software to this interface. Thereby, you're not picking one out of many to be a winner. You're allowing competition in the EVTR vendors, and you're allowing the dealers to be able to work with the vendor that they choose to work with for whatever reason they choose. And that's why you heard, I think, from Mr. Lambert that we've had 6 vendors for EVTR be able to work with MNDRIVE. That is the way that we need to be thinking about things. How do we open this up to allow competition and actually a lot easier work on behalf of the state in order to have multiple connections? So my compliments on that. I think things look good for the October 21 release. I do believe, keep in mind that as you heard today, there are 9 DRs that actually do things with ProRate and IFTA. There are fewer subject matter experts in DVS and as well in the DR community. So we're tapping the ones that we've got some expertise in Mr. Walters, who joins as the program manager after, as he said, since 2012 at DVS. So we're very happy to have that kind of expertise there as a new guy coming in. And I just want to say, so far, so good. The one thing we need to think about is what the impact has been on the DRs in terms of the workload that they are carrying at the front in a steady state with good software versus what it was before. I think we all acknowledge there's a little bit more work on the front end. And I think that the old time and motion studies are all related to MNDRIVE. So we don't have analytical detail about this yet, but we all know there's a little bit more work there. And I think that the DRs have expressed that, and that's part of what came up in the calls. And I think we just probably need to think about that function as we go forward and what we know to be the new steady state. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll wrap up. And of course, if anybody has questions for me, I'll be on during the time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. King. And at this point, we are going to go to member questions, and I'm going to lead off. I'd like to ask a question of the commissioner. First of all, Commissioner, congratulations on a job well done, both to yourself and to your team all the way down the ladder. I can't tell you how pleased I am to hear that MNDRIVE is successful because MNLARS, of course, was problematic in the very least. But my question is, Commissioner, the legislature has provided DPS with a fair amount of money for purposes of hiring FTEs to get this program, up and running. While at the same time, as Mr. King just indicated, there's additional work for the DRs on the front end. And consequently, at least in part, the DRs are asking for fee increases to justify the amount of extra time that they are putting into. Commissioner, is there going to be a time when this is going to somehow balance out so that we will maybe begin saving money on DPS's end of this with the need for fewer FTEs by reason of this nice software that we now have versus the extra fees that we're going to have to pay the DRs on the front end because of the extra workload? You and I have talked about this before on a number of occasions, as I recall. I'd just like to hear your current thoughts.
Chairman Newman, members of the committee, I actually am very optimistic that we will find a balance point. I think we're still in the earliest stages of this, and we're still catching up some of the old business. I think we're pretty much caught up with the work in progress now, but some of the comments that you heard even today about the PIC and people being on hold for extended periods of time with questions, I think continues to be a challenge that we are working through, and we're working through it with the staff that you have given us. And so we recognize both the need for that staff. Part of the reason I'm very optimistic is that with the work that we have done with FAST and with this movement toward innovation, we're looking at more and more self-service models of people's ability to get their license transactions taken care of. We expect that will need to be worked out with the deputy registers and with our other partners to figure out where that balance point is in terms of what the fees would be, where those kiosks would be, and how we would implement that. And I think that is going to be a place where we're going to start to see some of the savings in terms of transactions as we further automate those activities. I don't expect to see it in the short term. We're right now pivoting with staff moving from the title and registration piece and trying to make sure we keep up on driver's license, which is another task that you have also given us to make sure we're doing. But I am actually optimistic that we are going to see a balance point. One of the beauties of this technology, though, and I will mention this, is that as we are having those conversations with the deputy registers, because of the way FAST's technology is set up, we have a much more accurate picture of work volume and workflow and how much time it takes to do each of the transactions. My expectation is as deputy registers get more and more experience with FAST and with our system, that time is going to shrink, and that will aid them in terms of being able to process more transactions faster, and that should add to their bottom line, irregardless of whether there's a fee increase. But in the short term, I believe we're going to continue to work through the learning curve of this new system. But I really do think that you're going to see on both sides of that ledger, you're going to see some reductions there.
Thank you, Commissioner. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to continuing this conversation as we move forward. But thank you very much. I'll go to other member questions at this point, but I will remind you, members, that we do have Mr. Ken Buna from FAST on the line if anyone has any questions from FAST. And with that, I will go to Representative Hornstein.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. And I also want to echo Chair Newman's appreciation to the Department of Public Safety, Driver Vehicle Services, the deputy registrars that testified, the automobile dealers. I feel that we have really moved into a real partnership here that has been successful, and I'm confident we can continue to build on that success. So again, my appreciation, and to you, Mr. Chair, for all of your work. I am aware that we passed last year when we went into a post-COVID situation on a bipartisan basis, a number of extensions, driver's licenses, other kinds of extensions. Some were at the end of the peacetime emergency. Some, I think, expire at the end of March, some even in June. And I guess I wanted a sense, perhaps it's Ms. Corey or somebody from DVS, just to run down what are, and we've already talked about Real ID, that's been extended. Are there some actions that the legislature needs to take this session to extend some of these electronic allowances that we made? I don't think any of us thought that we'd be in this situation a year ago still. And I don't know, it's difficult to predict, what will happen in the future. Hopefully in fall, there'll be some sense of things returning to some semblance of normalcy. It will never be the same. But I'm interested to know from DVS, what extensions do you feel we may need to take as a legislature, given our situation?
Director Corey, do you wish to field that question? You're muted, Director Corey.
Thank you, Chair Newman. Yes, appreciate it. I certainly can respond. Representative Hornstein, what I will mention is the department, DVS, has just recently sent out about 300,000 letters to Minnesotans, letting them know that the peacetime emergency and the extensions for the DLs, especially their driver's licenses, the end of that is March 31st. So I do think that we do have to have an end in mind, because we've had about 300,000 that have deferred to come in and get their license renewed. So continuing to extend that time is probably going to continue to accumulate, and we will continue to be backlogged. So I do think when it comes to the driver's licenses, they do end on March 31st, and we have put some service options in place. For example, 6 Saturdays where our exam stations across the state are open to serve Minnesotans. We have not had a very strong traffic at those stations the last 2 Saturdays, but I'm hoping that will go, that will increase in the next 4. So I think when it comes to DLs, continuing to buy time will just have folks continue to delay coming in and getting updated. So I think that is one piece. However, when it comes to online options, I would strongly recommend that the legislators continue to see and provide the opportunity for increased options for standard renewals, increased options for online self-service options, and things like that. So, but extensions for DLs, if we gave them another 90 days, guess what? They're going to wait till those 90 days. And so I think with giving this time, folks have the opportunity to start coming in.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know we've got a couple others, and I can continue with DVS offline. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Hornstein. Representative Petersburg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually have 2 areas that I want to ask questions about. But first, isn't it a pleasure to have a rollout that didn't crash the system and actually was successful? It's such a refreshing thing to happen. So I really appreciate that. My question is first in regards to the older systems. I believe Legacy was decommissioned quite a while ago. MNDRIVE is now being decommissioned. But I know both of those had some residual errors and concerns. The Legacy had a lot of data that had to be cross-referenced and so forth. And MNDRIVE, we had a lot of um, miscalculated fees and structures like that. So I was just inquiring, have all of those solutions been resolved or problems been resolved before the decommissioning has happened? And is there any concerns about that in the future?
I'm going to take a guess on Mr. Walters, but if there's somebody else from DVS wants to answer that question.
Yeah, I may need to refer to others.
Yeah, Mr. Walters, go ahead if you can.
Sure. Yeah, there are some, residual things that, some errors that, from MNLARS that maybe are, that we are going to have to deal with in the new system here. That will some of that stuff will get corrected. For example, some of the wheelage tax counties that were incorrectly in the old system, they're now getting corrected this year. And so there are things like that. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question completely, but if there's anyone else from the DVS call that might step in, I'd be happy to turn that over to them.
Director Corey?
You're muted.
You're muted, Director Corey.
To add to Brendan, what I will say is that we did, in the weeks leading up to decommissioning MNLARS, we did extensive reach out to our staff and our supervisors to ensure that any data, any kinds of reports, for example, especially also tied to refunds and financial transactions. So we did a thorough check-in with our leadership and our staff to ensure that any data that might be needed, any report formats that might be needed over several weeks leading up to decommissioning were that the FAST team was informed about it, and that the Minute team and the FAST team worked together to ensure that those questions could be answered and that data would be available and exported into Minnesota Drive. So my comfort level and confidence with the export of data is high at this time.
Representative Petersburg.
Thank you for that. I just knew that we had some new pickups that were only charged like $2 for licensing, and I want to make sure that we are able to get those corrected and so forth. But my other question refers to the new system and the Office of Legislative Auditors report that came out in February in regards to this, in which there were 3 areas of concern. And I know, Ms. Corey, you and I have had some discussion on some of those, but one of them relates to what Chair Newman had asked about in regards to the cost issue. And I know that there is some attempt to make it more efficient, but the reality is that when people have concerns or questions, they're going to come to the deputy registers. If it's a simple transaction, they're going to go to the state, and yet the fee is the same. And so we need to figure out a way of making sure that we compensate the deputy registers for the actual costs that they're doing. And I know that may take a while to figure out, but that's part of it. The other 2 areas that the audit recognized was the other one in which we had Real ID extended. We only had given additional dollars through the extension at the beginning of this year. Now with the extension going to October, we may need additional personnel costs for that too. So you may have some ideas on what that will take. And the third item is just now that we're coming to the end of phase 2, we're going to have the program maintained into the future, and whether or not you have worked on getting a maintenance contract with FAST in order to continue on with that partnership, because it seems to me like they have done the job, and that is the place that we would want to maintain the system. So those are the 3 questions in regards to the OLA report that came out.
Director Corey.
Thank you, Chair Newman. Representative Petersburg, happy to answer that question. I'll start from the last one. So remember all 3, but the maintenance and operations contract with FAST has been signed and is in place as we speak today. Also, when it comes to the Real ID, yes, the funds that we received for the temp staffing naturally, when we extended the deadline and COVID, we haven't been focusing on Real ID. In fact, doing a lot of online standard renewals. So we are asking for that 2.4 million to be reappropriated back. It canceled to the fund, back to the vehicle services. We're asking for it to be reappropriated back to us so that we can focus on some temp staffing to help with Real ID processing leading up to October 2021. And then finally, the question regarding our deputy registrars again, and Representative Petersburg, you know this, our partnership is solid, our partnership is strong, our conversations are happening regularly. What I will commit to right now, our deputy registrars and their staff, as well as myself and my staff, all of us are in a learning curve. So everything's taking just a little bit longer, getting used to that new view, getting used to that new input so that the data is complete, you know, providing the time for those new formatted letters so that information is clear and it reduces the number of calls that come in because the letters are complete and they're accurate when they go out to our customers. So during this time of transition, what I will say is that we are working with our deputy registrars to balance out the work. I'll give you an example. Right now, one of our largest pain points for our deputy registrars is you and me coming in and being angry because they are not accepting a certain document for a Real ID transaction. Now, right now, DVS is working specifically with Ken and his team so that the pre-approval of documents can happen on the front end before you and I even go to a deputy registrar for that transaction. So you and I apply, we pre-apply for a Real ID, we upload our documents before going to the deputy registrar, then you go to the deputy registrar can pull up the documents, do a visual check of the document that you physically brought in and move forward with approving it. It goes straight to printing and the customer gets their Real ID in no more than 2 weeks time. So we're looking at ways intentionally to ease the burden on our deputy registrars. But again, deputy registrars and my staff, both on that learning curve right about now as we are learning the new system under four months of launch. It will get better. It will get better. It already is.
Thank you, Director Corey. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I hate to keep repetitive, but I want to thank everybody. Governor Walz, I don't agree with him on some things, but he hit this one out of the park. It was good, and we got this through this. Commissioner Harrington, Director Corey, Rick King, Ken Buna, you guys have all been fantastic. I want to thank you. And most of all, our deputy registers. These guys have been through a lot of work, as has been stated the last 3 years. And I know Director Corey has continually stated these folks are very, very valuable to us. So I want to continue to say thanks to them. I did get to spend about a couple hours with my deputy registers and actually got to sit at the computer screen and work through the FAST software. And I saw in the report, in the FAST report, there were some issues with screen flow. And I did see that there's some delays that slow these down. I know we've decreased our time, but there's still some issues I hope you continue to work on for that screen flow. It does go slowly sometimes, and I don't think it's internet connection. I just think it's the way the software goes. It's slow to update those things, and it takes time for the deputy registrar to kind of have that standstill moment where they can't do anything else. So I hope we continue to work on that, and maybe Ken Buna can talk about that. And I also want to emphasize that the deputy registrars have been putting more and more input in through this process. It takes a much longer, and somehow we have to figure out how we divide up those fees to make sure they're compensated for that, because not only have they been through a lot of things, they still put a lot more in. I just also want to comment on Rick King's comments about multiple vendors. This hits our deputy registers exactly. We have to have these private deputy registers that make it so much more valuable to have that out there. They can do things much more efficiently, I believe, than having one consolidated system through having that. And then also, almost lastly, but the kiosks, I've been pushing that. I'll have a bill for that. I think that's very important, and making sure these deputy registers can oversee those in their districts and pick up some income off those so they can do that. It'll decrease the times that people are waiting. I know people in our deputy registrar's office here in Faribault, long lines, and these kiosks will really help alleviate that. So again, hats off to everybody. Everybody's done a lot of work, something we should be very proud of here in Minnesota, to have MNDRIVE up and operating. And thank you for all your work.
Thank you, Senator Jasinski. That brings us to 11:30. I would urge any members that have questions at this point to, please submit them to the commissioner or his staff and get the answers that way. Again, my appreciation to everyone who has worked on this, and my appreciation for this hearing today. I think it was candidly very helpful. It's really nice to get some good news on occasion, is it not? So, members, that completes our agenda for today, and we are adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.